By my troth, I care not. A man can die but once. We owe God a death and let it go which way it will. He that dies this year is quit for the next. It's supposed to be about not giving up, but no one ever knows what Shakespeare is saying anyway, so it's no surprise that this was really difficult to get through and I almost jumped out of a window. Can you believe that there was a point where I thought Don Bluth's movies would actually be better than Disney's? What a sick, twisted, sadistic fact that is. Let's not draw this out, because no amount of time can adequately explain the crimes that these movies have committed just by existing. They're completely insane at best and unwatchable at worst, and you're kidding yourself if you think I'm doing the sequels to these too. There are 3 more American Tail movies. 3! No, we're only doing 6 movies today. But the number is irrelevant if each movie feels like drinking mercury straight from the thermometer. William Shakespeare said that too, definitely. Let's begin.
Gimme some time to think.
I've seen some bizarre things during this series, but I have to say that Rock-a-doodle still manages to be the second weirdest movie on this list so far. What's in first place should not surprise you. This movie is a complete mess, and honestly, I love it. I'd say that they obviously made the whole thing up as they went along, but I don't think even that adequately covers exactly what this movie is. So what's this movie even about? Well, even that's a complicated question. The truth is, this movie needs to be seen to be believed, and it's only 74 minutes anyway, but I'll try my best to outline the plot here. Chanticleer, yes, that is his name, is a rooster who sings every morning to make the sun rise, but then he misses it one day and the sun rises anyway, so everyone laughs him off the farm, and he goes to the big city and becomes Elvis. But then the sun stops rising anyway, just you wait, we'll get to that too, and this owl and his minions take over the farm, and it starts raining, and there's a giant flood, so all the farm animals, as well as this cat, who's actually much more than a cat, have to find Chanticleer and bring him back so he can sing again and make the sun rise. Already you might be able to see a big problem. Everyone's trying to find Chanticleer so he'll raise the sun, right? But he can't raise the sun. They laughed him off the farm because it turns out he never could raise the sun, and the sun randomly stops rising as soon as he leaves, and all of a sudden, they need to find Chanticleer to get him to raise the sun, even though he can't friggin' raise the sun. And to make things even worse, all of the owls are trying to stop everyone from finding Chanticleer because then he'll raise the sun. So I guess every single character in the story and every single person who made this movie conveniently forgot that Chanticleer does not have that ability and never did, but apparently he does because they bring him back and everything goes perfectly. And this movie fails at even the most basic things too. Well, except for the animation. Miraculously, the movie is pretty well animated. It's about on the same level as his previous movies in that respect, but everything else is awful. All of the songs are like 15 seconds long and it's really weird. Like, listen to this one.
Twiddly-dee, twiddly-dee, they're running out, they're running out, they're running out of batteries. No batteries.
Like, that's the whole song. There's so many characters and none of them are interesting at all, not even the lasagna bird who sounds like the glasses kid from Polar Express.
Wowie, wow, 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 wow! Are we close? Are we near the city? Us magpies are just made for the city.
I guess this would be the spot to mention the head owl, but it's not that deep if I'm being honest. He's not that memorable of a villain, but he doesn't really do anything that makes me dislike him. He's just kind of there. The only thing of note about him is his Wanda Maximoff chaos magic reality shifting mouth laser beams. Yes, that's right, which never get any explanation, and then at the end he uses it to turn into a literal, and this is real too, tornado. Like, he grows to like 500 feet tall, spins around, and becomes a tornado. How is this guy able to be defeated by a rooster whose abilities are questionable anyway? And Chanticleer is just stupid. He was so easily distracted by... Dawn, are you okay?
I'm okay!
Goldie Pheasant is gross. Not just in the fact that she looks like Tweety Bird, and not just in the fact that her voice was definitely put through an Alvin and the Chipmunks voice filter or something, and I refuse to believe otherwise, but in the fact that her existence and her role in the movie are both incredibly not in favor of women, which might be a good time to mention all of the sexism sprinkled throughout the movie.
Fortunately for us, Goldie was a lot smarter than she sounded.
What happened?
Dad, she's a woman.
It might seem like I hate this movie, but I don't. I don't really know how I feel about this movie, actually. I definitely get some sort of ironic enjoyment out of it. I'd rather watch The Three Caballeros but at the same time, I'd still watch this 5 times over before seeing An American Tail again. The truth is, there's nothing like Rock-a-doodle. There's nothing as confusing, as random, as YTP-esque, and the best part is, I haven't even gotten to the best part of the movie.
Who's that, Mom?
That's the Grand Duke. He's the one who's causing all the trouble. He sent that mean old rooster to Santa Claus.
Believe it or not, this movie actually has several parts and live action. Just like the 3 caballeros. Hot diggity dog, everyone. Time for an Ocean's 11 plot twist where we go back and reframe everything that we've talked about in a different lens. You see, it turns out that the cat who helps them find the city was actually a boy who was magically turned into a cat by the owl guy. And when I say a boy, I mean a real boy who read the story of Chanticleer in a book, and then the live-action world became animated, and he joins the story, and so there's definitely some weird dimension-hopping things going on, and it makes me wonder, like, why would you... What was the point of this? Why would you add any of this to the story? Now I think that if you want to make sense of the story now, without adding weird multiverse travel, the boy would have to be schizophrenic, so he thinks he spent a whole day with the storybook characters, and even then, I'm not sure, is that even how schizophrenia works? Is that something that could feasibly happen? I mean, none of this is feasible, but like, you get what I'm saying. Whatever the case, this was the cherry on top to make this movie the pinnacle of meaningless garbage, and so without thinking about it at all, I'm gonna put it below Jack Frost and above The Sword in the Stone. Realistically, it's probably at the bottom, and if not at the very bottom, pretty dang close, but this movie is just so much fun to watch that I would pick it over almost half of the movies we've seen so far. And that's the power of an opinion. I gotta say, I'm now hotly anticipating the next 5 movies. There's almost a 0% chance that any of them will be good, but it turns out that might be exactly what I wanted the whole time. I'm really glad that instead of being a soul-sucking, terminally boring dumpster fire, Rock-a-doodle was so objectively awful that I enjoyed it more than basically any of Marvel Phase 4. The movie I thought it was gonna be? Yeah, that's exactly what Thumbelina is. Don Bluth has such a talent for taking a decent premise and wasting it completely after only 20 minutes. An American Tail did it, more movies after this will do it, and this movie somehow did it worst of all. Might as well get this part out of the way now. This movie is beyond terrible. It's literally worse than All Dogs Go to Heaven, and that's unironically one of the most impressive things I have ever seen. At least it would be if I didn't detest this movie's very existence, and somehow, this movie still has a few things going for it. The animation is still at the same level as before, the lines are still nice and thin, there are good amounts of detail, and the backgrounds I think have transcended looking like paintings and have now become nearly identical to actual real-life landscapes. Good job, I guess. And the songs. Since Don's songs are usually absolutely awful, I kind of went in apathetic, since I was expecting him to be on the level of this, and oh my god, is that an I Want song? Believe it or not, quite a few of these songs fall under the categories, and by the categories, I mean the categories. I'm not explaining it again, that video is so damn long, so go watch that one. But like, there's an I Want song, there's a love song, which is awful, but still, a villain song technically. We will get to the villains, plural, very shortly, and in very great depth. That might be it actually. Oh yeah, and an intro song, or 2. I don't know if you want to count that though. The rest of the songs are all fluff, and while I guess a few of them sound nice, I'd be lying if I said I remembered the tune to any of them, except for the Follow Your Heart one, which we'll also talk about. Also, geez, these voice actors are getting their full paycheck on these songs. You can almost hear them like vomiting their soul out of their body and pouring it into the recording. I envy their lung capacity, but that's genuinely about it, because the rest of this movie is like worse than worthless. Like the Prince. He's got a lot of Peter Pan's energy, both in his general vibes and his vague sex offenderness. It makes sense in context, I promise. He and Thumbelina fall in love and almost kiss after like 3 minutes, so that romance definitely wasn't rushed at all.
And you are?
Giselle.
Oh, Giselle! We shall be married in the morning.
Up until this point, the movie is fine. But like I said before, just like with An American Tail and just like the movies to come, everything exponentially gets worse after the first 20 minutes, and here it boils down to two things. First is the pacing, which is really self-explanatory. It freaking sucks, and that's why this 80-minute movie took me like 5 hours to watch about, but somehow, somewhere, some why, that's the minor issue. No. There is a second thing that takes this movie from the realm of bad to the realm of, say it with me, just downright creepy. Racist, sexist, it's absolutely horrible. So let's discuss The Family of Frogs. Let me tell you, when Twitter gets their hands on this movie, it will be the end of all things. So, these 4 frogs kidnap Thumbelina because they want an intergenerational threesome or foursome or fivesome, at least I'm pretty sure, although the female frog also wants to continue the trend started by Rock-a-doodle, insisting that Thumbelina should do like dances with her, which I think might just be code for, hey, let's shoot other types of dances together. You know, it's really unclear what it is they want, but plot twist, they are Hispanic. And by Hispanic, I mean what white people think Hispanics were like in the 90s. So, you know what, let's stop hoping for these guys to be good characters right now. The whole frog family is just a giant walking stereotype, and it's really bad, man. The woman frog looks like this, the man frog looks like that. One of their names is Gringo, I think. That's pretty rough, isn't it? They all live in a pawn shop or something, and oh yeah, they're all criminals. And to make the whole matter of racism worse, it seems that the theme of the movie is actually not like you would expect. Hey, maybe don't kidnap people and force them to marry you. What kind of a ridiculous, intelligent theme is that? We can't have intelligence here. My name is Donald Virgil Bluth. Ever heard of me? The theme is instead that people from different races cannot marry, and the sheer idea is disgusting, nay, horrifying, which... Huh? And this is a bit of a tangent, but their pawn shop is on a lily pad on the lake, and it looks so ugly. I think it's made of CGI, but that's the only explanation I can come up with for why it looks like that. But then Thumbelina immediately escapes the pawn shop, so the man frog goes hunting after her. And then after that, it just becomes Alice in Wonderland with a shrunken down little girl wandering around and meeting stupid character after stupid character. But instead of there, where Alice was wandering around a place with actual creativity and effort put into it, a wonderland, if you will, here it's just some field. Believe it or not, this movie actually made me yearn for Alice in Wonderland. But this is just what the last hour of the movie is. So, I guess this would be the place to mention that Thumbelina is the most flat and boring character imaginable, with absolutely zero traits, which certainly doesn't help make the slog feel any less tedious. I could stop here, but damn it, I'm gonna keep going. This movie made me angry. Like, she falls down a waterfall at one point, okay? But she's literally in a field, so how is any point low enough compared to any other point for there to be a waterfall? And she meets this French mime bird, whom I would love nothing more than to turn into a pie. Oh wait! He sings this stupid song where the only words are follow your heart, and not only is the song really stupid, but he every so often just starts singing it again. And I think in total he sings it like 6 times. We got it the first time, okay? Follow your heart, sure. And don't get me started on this Beatle. No, you know what? All the Beatles. The main ones are rapists, and the rest of them make me want to jump off the Burj Khalifa. If I start talking about them, I will literally never stop.
She's so ugly, she's hurting my feelings.
But somehow there are still, even now, 30 minutes left. We meet a mouse and a mole, and neither of them make any sense. But hey, I'm glad to see them, because they're the only ones in the whole movie who don't want to sexually assault Thumbelina. Haha, just kidding. Of course they want to assault her too. My name's Don Bluth. What did you think was gonna happen, idiot? Turns out the mole just really wants to marry her, and the mouse is all in, so now they're both conspiring to put her in this arranged marriage, and now they're getting married! You literally can't make this up, this is so stupid. And even more so, the mouse sings a song to Thumbelina, which is a parody of Here Comes the Bride, where she explains that marrying for love is pointless and awful, all enunciated in the sweet and mellifluous voice of Carol Channing. I cannot encourage you enough to look up this song and watch it. It's called Marry the Mole, and it really shows you exactly what is wrong with society and humanity as a whole. Believe it or not, this movie actually won a Razzie. No, I'm not joking. It won a Razzie Award for the worst song of that year, making it the only animated movie of all time to ever win one of those awards. The only one ever. But wait, there's still more, because the climax of the movie is all of Thumbelina's past abusers, well, climaxing and chasing after her for the coveted chance to abuse her yet again. And then the prince remembers that he's in the movie and somehow everything resolves itself and they get married. Well, whoop-de-doo, I want to die. You'd think that there'd be plenty to ironically enjoy in this movie, but you'd be wrong. Rock-a-doodle is a complete mess, but it's never boring. This movie just is. Even though Thumbelina is racist and sexist, and probably a whole bunch of other things I was too upset to notice, its worst crime, which is a controversial thing to say, I know, is how it manages to always be so infuriatingly boring, even when the most preposterous things are being shoved straight in your face. I despise so much of what this movie stands for, and I'm just as shocked as you are that I'm putting this movie in dead last, below The Three Caballeros, below All Dogs Go to Heaven, and most miraculous of all, below Gay Paris. If you've been here since the start, or even since episode 3, or even watched snippets of those videos, you know how genuinely tremendous this is, and somehow it doesn't even feel low enough still. During a test screening, they literally edited the Disney opening at the start to trick the audience into liking it more. The only reason this movie exists at all is because of a lie. Dawn knew what this movie was, and that's what sickens me the most. What a phenomenal start. We've still got 4 to go. Kill me now.
Hello, New York, New York, New York.
Hey, watch where you're going.
I'll watch where I'm going in New York.
A troll in Central Park. At this point, I question where even the idea for a movie like this comes from. I think the only answer is the mind of a toddler, because this is a movie for, like, newborns. The best way I can describe this movie is just insanity by cuteness, or an attempt at cuteness at least. This movie tries so hard to be the most acid-trippish thing humanity has ever made, and if I'm being honest, it may have succeeded. The premise is exactly what you think and nothing like what you think. A troll gets banished to Central Park. Okay, so this is probably gonna be like Elf, right? Good lord, those edibles were stronger than I thought. I don't think Dawn ever realized that good animation isn't enough to save a movie with zero other effort put in, which is what every movie after Land Before Time has been. But now that's barely even happening, because even if the backgrounds look fine, the character designs here are absolute garbage. There's a lot to talk about here, but I think I'll start with the main troll's green thumb, which he can use to grow plants with smiley faces. But oh no, the troll queen hates plants for no reason at all. On the topic of the queen though, dear Lord Almighty, she can turn people into stone with her purple thumb, so there's definitely an interesting concept there that's never expanded on, not to mention that she's literally evil just because, and she's sure to explain that, in song form no less, and the songs, oh boy, they just keep getting worse, and I'm beyond scared for what comes next. I mean, in terms of everything, honestly, but especially this. So this stupid fantasy world gets crossed over with New York City, and from then on, nothing happens in this movie, for real. It's all filler, kind of like the American Tail thing, but instead of after 20 minutes, it's after 10, and instead of wasting a good concept, it's making an awful concept somehow even worse. So if the former could make the worst movie on this list so far, and the movies in this video have been on an exponential decline, what does this mean for this movie, and for the next 3 after this? And even worse, instead of Thumbelina filler where it's boring with no ironic enjoyment, this is somehow boring and objectively ridiculous all at once. Oh no, the little girl is crying. Quick, let's jump into a 5-minute scene of flowers dancing to make her feel better, which is like 5% of the runtime. But oh no, then the boy starts crying and floods the cave with his tears, because the troll queen, I guess, put a curse on him, so then they have to escape that. Now it's been like 20% of the runtime, and it just keeps going. This is only one example, and all the examples bleed into each other. It's all one continuous, like, lump of trash. The movie is full of this. There are 2 kids in this movie who are both really annoying, which might actually be a good time to clarify that I don't actually hate kids, although looking back at my previous video, it definitely kind of came off that way. Trust me, I don't, technically and legally being a kid myself. The plot of this movie is really stupid too. I don't feel like explaining what happens exactly because it's just whatever Dawn thought of. Pull up a random noun generator and you'll be more entertained than if you had seen this movie. Whoville is the only thing of note anyway, and Don literally said that the creation of this movie was comparable to an infant's premature birth. That is an actual quote, and that's honestly all you need to know to understand why you should never touch this movie. Interestingly enough though, there's not that much else to say. Initially, I had a lot more written down, but it was all just a bunch of nothing, and I don't want to waste my time or yours. You kind of just have to see it to fathom how absolutely absurd and awful it is, and I don't wish that upon anyone. Thing is, it takes the impossible nature of Rock-a-doodle making every wrong decision, which in turn made it immensely enjoyable at every turn, and the utter boredom of Thumbelina, and meshes them both together, canceling out all the enjoyment, and leaving us with a movie that makes every wrong decision and is supremely boring. And that's literally not possible. But this absolute abomination somehow did it. After all, what other movie could make a whopping $71,000 at the box office? In a lot of ways, this movie's a lot like Gay Paris, so it's only fitting that it goes right above it, which would also be right below All Dogs Go to Heaven. Congrats on not being the absolute worst movie so far, even though realistically you probably are. Don't flatter yourself, I still never want to come near you again. For some reason, I just don't think I can realistically stomach Musette again, and I know I can't stomach Thumbelina again. Bottom line is, Don Bluth has to give up soon. Right?
Penguins hopping, penguins hopping, penguins, penguins, penguins hopping, penguins hopping, penguins hopping, penguins, 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 penguins having fun. Yay!
There is no more objective statement than the one I'm about to say. There is not a soul on this planet who does not like penguins. Even if your movie is bad, throw in a penguin and it'll instantly be better. Throw one into a good movie and it becomes great. But if anyone could possess the sheer lack of talent to make a movie not only with penguins, but about penguins bad, it would certainly be Don Bluth. So, was this movie's penguinness able to save it? Yes, actually. The Pebble and the Penguin is a below-average movie, but I wouldn't actually call it a bad movie, which is nothing short of a miracle. So basically, someone at the studio saw a documentary on penguin mating practices and decided to base a whole feature film off of it, which is actually pretty funny. The men have to find a pebble, and the women judge the men's quality based on the quality of whatever pebble they chose. Our main character is Hubie, who's struggling to find a pebble to impress the girl of his dreams named... I don't know, actually. She's essentially the pick-me girl of penguins. She doesn't want to choose a mate based on a pebble. She's not like those other penguins. She wants to do the intelligent thing and marry for love, and inexplicably she chooses Hubie. They have absolutely zero chemistry, but considering how much we've been blessed already, I think that can be optional. Unfortunately, there's a problem.
But someone else had his eye on the fair Marina. Drake.
Drake is kind of like Kronk, but as a penguin, and he's actually pretty fun to watch. I mean, he's an absolute joke, and he acts like the bully in a high school movie, and he's voiced by the butler from Clue, and so he's trying and failing to have an American accent for the whole movie, which somehow makes him even more like Kronk.
So, nerd, I hear you want to be a big ladies' man.
Well, 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 what do we have here? A new face.
But that's exactly why I like him. Ah, sweet ironic enjoyment, how I've missed you. So, Hubie finds this cool pebble, but then Drake throws him into the ocean, and then he gets carried right into the path of a boat which ships him to New Zealand. Right on track for the 20-minute mark death sentence, the rest of the movie becomes his quest to get back with help from Rocco the Rockhopper, who I actually also didn't mind, even though he has all the traits of an overly aggressive, insecure, and alcohol-dependent 38-year-old man. But, like, Rocco has actual motivations and real likes and dislikes, like how he really wants to fly. Somehow these two together have something incredible and totally foreign to this video. Chemistry. They're actual jokes, intentional ones, that were written into the script on purpose.
This is a chance of a lifetime. This is the end of a lifetime.
And they say things that actually bounce off of other things that the other one says, and that chemistry actually improves the pacing by a lot, and makes the quest back to Antarctica, which in reality is just two penguins swimming for 3,000 miles, a lot more enjoyable. Is this a real movie? Like a real movie? The backgrounds still look good, but shockingly, they've actually started kind of trying on everything else too. the foreground, the character design, although not Hubie's, and even finishing drawing in objects. Like, the opening sequence had visible effort put in, and if I'm being honest, a lot of sequences actually look straight out of Fantasia, or like a monster movie. Antarctica is a pretty depressing place, right? But here there are a lot of colors that add a little bit of spice, like they did with The Land Before Time. Although you can definitely tell things were rushed in a few places, like in this shot where every penguin who isn't currently singing is frozen in time, and how on full screen here you can see where the girl penguin just completely disappears at the bottom of the screen because no one bothered to draw it in the entire way. But for how rushed this was, they didn't do too bad with the animation. Well, how about the songs? I didn't mention it then, but the songs for Thumbelina were written by Bruce Sussman, and believe it or not, Barry Manilow, and that's the case here as well. There, the songs actually tried to be good and tried to follow the categories at times, cookie-cutter garbage at best and worst song of the year award winning at worst or not, and it's about the same here. They tried to fill in the categories in some spots, like there's something resembling an I Want song, a love song, a villain song, things like that, but this time, the songs are occasionally catchy, and I only hated one.
Looks like I got me a
This movie goes below The Great Mouse Detective and above Pocahontas. This might seem a bit too high, but keep in mind that actually a lot of the movies we've seen so far have way worse pacing or have way more difficulty holding my attention. This movie may not be a good movie, no one really learned any lessons, there aren't really any themes, they only address the issue of starvation like 80% of the way through the 10-day journey. There's a stupid gag where Hubie threatens to suffocate himself if Rocco doesn't admit that he likes him, which also accompanies a song about their secret gay romance, and I'll probably never watch it again. But I could. And that's the big difference. The reality is, this is exactly what Don needed. An innocent but still enjoyable movie that brings in some money, I mean like not even $4 million, but still, and gives him the chance to actually make bigger and better things without him falling on his face. And what do you know? That's exactly what he tried next.
Grandma, it's me, Anastasia.
Damn, can you believe India passed China in people? Like, that's crazy. That's a lot of people. Anyway, Anastasia is fine. It's a really good musical and a really, really okay movie, which is sadly kind of the best Don Bluth has ever had to offer and ever will offer. To his credit, he did actually try to make a good movie this time, and he almost did, but we'll get to that in a minute. Right away, you can tell that the animation is pretty close to Disney level, and you can also tell that this is the first of his movies that has shots with the bigness of the ones in the Disney Renaissance. The backgrounds are all detailed, all of the rooms look really nice, the character designs are way better. I mean, the Pebble and the Penguin made things look passable, but this actually made it look good. Not quite as good as Disney in some places, like the people in the music box look straight out of Roblox, and the train doesn't look too good either. Actually, there's a lot of awful CGI here, but Disney went through all this too, and they weren't used to making good movies and had to adapt, and now I guess it's Don's turn. Hallelujah, too bad he messes it up, but I'm getting ahead of myself. It's kind of wild that the turnaround happened so abruptly, considering that A Troll in Central Park was only like 3 years ago. I'm sure it has nothing to do with Don Bluth Entertainment technically actually being closed down after The Pebble and the Penguin, and this movie actually was made by Fox Animation Studios instead. Whatever, if Don Bluth was involved, it might as well go in this video, and Wikipedia agrees with me. The songs are actually 50-50. All but 3 remind me a lot of the Silver and Bronze Age songs where there's no chorus or any real melody or recurring sequence of notes, whatever those are called, that come back over and over so that you can't remember anything about the song after like 30 minutes. The 3 I like though are really, really good. The I Want song, the Plan Comes Together song, which is genuinely the best moment in the movie because of how catchy it is, and the Creepy Ghost Dancing song, which are all unironically Disney level and just downright fantastic. Also, they somehow handled the infamous amnesia shtick well here. I mean, it's a bit weird that she was like running after the train, fell somehow, and boom, no thoughts, head empty, but it actually isn't obnoxious like it usually is, and it's a decent way of explaining why she didn't come forward after all this time if she was really still alive, which might be a good time to bring up Dimitri, who I actually like quite a bit. He and this other guy, Vlad, are trying to hire a girl who looks like Anastasia to play the role of Anastasia for her grandmother, who survived and is promised a huge reward for whoever finds her granddaughter. Of course, they end up picking the actual Duchess Anastasia, who doesn't remember being the Duchess Anastasia, and that's a bit contrived, but I don't really care, because she and Dimitri actually have chemistry. And the scene where he realizes that she really is Anastasia is actually pretty good, so everything I've said so far could theoretically be an entire movie on its own, and it doesn't sound half bad. But this movie is simply not as good as the Renaissance movies, and I think a lot of that is because there's actually a very unnecessary addition to this movie, who I haven't mentioned yet. Jafar, also known as Rasputin, but let's not kid ourselves, his design was definitely ripped off on some level. Now don't get me wrong, Rasputin was a pretty gross guy. He had lots of harems and all that, and I'm sure he did plenty of raping and the like in his time, but he in fact did not kill the Romanov family. More so, he was dead himself by the time they died, and to add insult to injury, in the movie, he's just garbage anyway, padding out the runtime with random and pointless obstacles, like enchanting Anastasia to sleepwalk off of a boat and drown. I'm not lying when I say Rasputin can just be completely removed, and the only things that would change would just make the movie better. If it wasn't for him, the movie would be so much higher ranked. At least we got the bat. I like the bat. So, this movie just goes below Santa Claus is Coming to Town and above Frosty the Snowman. Without context, that makes it sound like a really bad movie, but look how close it is to the top still, and more importantly, how far it is from Thumbelina. The fact that Donald Virgil Bluth got that close to making an okay-ish Disney Renaissance level movie means that he was kind of always capable of doing that, but decided to make trash instead. And that makes me really... I don't know how it makes me feel. This video has drained all my energy and it's almost done. This is the only movie in this video where I won't actually warn you to stay away from it. Definitely check it out if you haven't already, but just know it's not for everyone. At the end of the day, for as much as I've complained about this movie, it is in fact a good movie and a fantastic musical, and that's more than I ever could have asked for. Titan AE came out in 2000, and even though that officially makes me a clickbaiting liar and I'm getting my YouTube license revoked, it's also the last movie Don Bluth made, and so there's nowhere else to put it. There are a few interesting things about this movie. For one, it's science fiction. For two, it's not a musical. And for three, it looks really Season 1 of the Clone Wars. Actually, let's start with that one. The 2D animation is good. The backgrounds have lots of detail, and the alien planets look really nice, especially the one with the orange fire trees, which was an actual creative idea. But here, that's only like a third of the story. Anytime you see a ship or a spacesuit or anything that's remotely big, it's made with CGI and it all looks really awful. I mean, the Dredge look really cool and they're made out of energy and that's neat, but they also don't look good. I personally don't care if a movie looks ugly, and I don't think anyone else really does either, otherwise Toy Story would not be as liked as it is. But if you've ever seen documentaries or videos of the making of Pixar movies where everything looked really half-finished, that's kind of what it looks like, but in the final cut, in every single scene. I'm sure it'd look amazing today if people still made 2D animated movies, but there's no point in being hypothetical, and it wasn't made today, so let's just move past the 480p version of the Mona Lisa-ness of the movie and talk about something else, like the songs, or more specifically, the lack of songs. I mean, all the rock and roll music they play is really bad, but that's probably just because all rock and roll music is bad. But dear lord, imagine how awful this movie would have been if it was a musical, a science fiction musical. You know, I'm all for being creative and breaking the mold or whatever, but just not when the guy doing it is the guy who made Rock-a-doodle. The story isn't bad per se, it's just generic and predictable, with a twisty twist that's also very predictable. And it's pretty slow-paced and hard to get through at times, like Lightyear, but infinitely better because Pixar actually made great things in the past, whereas Don barely has a reputation to ruin. No offense. Most of the characters are lacking any traits other than save humanity or save yourself and forget humanity, so they're basically just mouthpieces for the message of the movie, which I guess is just don't give up now that I'm thinking about it. I wish they wouldn't quip at each other so much, but it doesn't matter because every character-related flaw that this movie has is redeemed by the existence of the turtle with glasses, whom I love deeply. Actually, that's honestly all there is to this movie. It only makes those couple of mistakes, but keep in mind that those mistakes are really long-term ones that spread their disease throughout the whole movie, leaving me with nothing to talk about except what I think might be the first major inclusion of a twist villain. Dear Christ Almighty and Heavenly Savior above. No, I'm not religious, why do you ask? I'm just gonna tell you who it is because no one cares about this movie anyway. It's this ship captain guy who knew the main character's father, because of course it is. He's working with the Dredge to try to find the Titan, this giant megaship thingy that can build a planet out of nothing, which would give humanity a new home since Earth kind of bit the dust at like the 6-minute mark. Problem is, halfway through the movie, The main character gets kidnapped by the Dredge, and they use him to get the map to the ship, but then the ship captain and the other guys go to save him, which prevents the Dredge from finding the Titan as easily. But then he's like actively working against them, right? And that doesn't make any sense. But wait, because not only does this movie have the series' first twist villain, it also has its second twist villain. Because then this kangaroo demon-looking guy who's conspiring with the ship captain is also a twist villain who betrays the first twist villain and holds everyone hostage because the Dredge promised him a reward if he gave them the Titan instead. But wait, what in the world is the point of this if the Dredge are already getting the Titan? Why are they constantly undermining their own efforts? None of this makes any sense. This couldn't possibly be an omen of things to come, could it? This movie is probably the best case scenario for a CGI-infused rock-and-roll animated science fiction epic produced by the director of Thumbelina, The Pebble and the Penguin, and A Troll in Central Park, but that's also not saying a lot. But look on the bright side, it may be largely worthless, but we've seen worse worthless things today, as well as other worse worthless things not today, so it goes below Robin Hood and above The Land Before Time. And oh my god, we've done it. We defeated Don Bluth. We vanquished him. Out of his 10 movies, he only made like 2 that were good, his very first and his second to last, which actually shows some incredible perseverance, being able to keep going even after making a movie that couldn't break $100,000 at the box office. But he kept going, kept trying, and honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Today, there are tons of animation studios. DreamWorks, Pixar, Sony, Illumination, Blue Sky for a while. The boundaries of animation have been pushed so much since the 90s, adding a whole other dimension, and they're still being pushed as we speak. But Dawn was the first. Dawn, believe it or not, in a way, was the precursor to How to Train Your Dragon, to Toy Story 3, to Spider-Verse, to the hypothetical great movie that Blue Sky never got around to making. Without Donald Virgil Bluth, animation would not be what it is, and this series wouldn't be what it is. And so, in the next video, we'll be exploring the first DreamWorks and Pixar movies to examine— I'm just kidding. No. That's more episode 10 material. Turns out we have one more stop. So tell me, have you ever heard of the Disney sequels?
For nothing at all.